My name is Sarah Markham. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the University of Limerick and I'm funded by the Irish Research Council. So my research, I look at ultrasound imaging, which is a form of imaging that allows us to use sound to see places we wouldn't normally see, such as inside a mother's belly. And it uses the same technology that bats used to see. Bats will make a high-pitched noise, they listen for the echoes, and how soon they hear the echo tells them where or how close an object is, and where the echo comes from tells them where that object is. The aim of my research is to build a new transducer. That's the part that makes and listens to the echoes for the ultrasound. And we're going to do this using biodegradable and natural materials. So this is much better for the environment and hopefully will be healthier as well because it won't contain lead. So what we do when we build something with new materials, it's important to test it to make sure it works at least as well as what we have before, if not better. And a quick way to do this is to use a computer model to design it. So this is much cheaper and faster than building lots of different versions of the product before we make it. When we're happy with the design, then we have to make it and test it, which is a really important stage. And hopefully, all fingers crossed, it'll match what our computer said. When I was in primary school, I thought I hated maths. And for the first couple of years of primary school, I really didn't enjoy them. I found it really difficult to remember my times tables, and I just thought I wasn't good at it. Luckily, I had a really good teacher who loved maths and used to put a problem up on the board. If we finished our work early and solved it, then we would get a small prize. And the first few times I couldn't solve them, I didn't have a clue how to do them, but each time he showed us how the problem was solved, and eventually I was able to learn how to solve them. And it turns out that I really loved solving maths problems, and I was in fact able to become quite good at maths. But I didn't always want to grow up to be in STEM. I in fact wanted to go into medicine when I was about 4. That or I wanted to be a fairy. When I went to secondary school then I studied woodwork, Italian, Spanish and home ec were the options that I got to pick, and I really loved woodwork. In fact, I'd have loved to keep it on for my leaving cert, but the way the subjects were organised, we had to pick. And it was against physics, so I picked physics. In school, maths and physics became my favourite subjects, so I decided to pursue them in college. Didn't really know where I was going to go with it, but I knew I loved it and that was enough of a reason to follow it. So I started my college education studying for a degree in maths and physics, and I really enjoyed it. It had a lovely mix of maths and physics, so it wasn't more one or the other, which was really enjoyable to get to have both equally. And I got to have lots of different classes where we learned about the theory, but also there was a practical side of it. So we'd have labs in most of our modules. And then we got to have work experience. So we had 8 months where we went and worked with a company to see what it was like and to apply the skills that we'd learned during our degree. And that's how I stumbled into what I think is probably one of the best jobs in the world. So I'm a physicist, and what I do, it changes every day. So some days I could be learning how to use a different piece of machinery, or I could be learning about something new that I never knew about before, the theory of it. And I can be learning a new practical skill, how to prepare samples and so on. While I was in school, I didn't really pay too much attention to the ratio of boys to girls that were in our physics class. But one thing I did really notice at the time was that physics wasn't equally available to everyone. We had a girl who had to join our school because her school didn't offer physics. And this was and unfortunately still is quite a problem, that physics isn't offered in every school, and particularly in all girls' schools, that they just don't have the option to study it. What happens is in some schools you can have a culture that girls shouldn't study physics, which of course is incorrect. But if that belief is in a school, then the girls who like physics but maybe don't love it might not choose to do it. And that leaves the few who absolutely love physics unable to do it because the school won't offer it if there aren't enough people studying it. So it's something really important that the students who do like physics do say, yeah, I'm going to study it and I enjoy it. You might not continue in it, but you can enjoy it while it's there and make it available and equally accessible to everyone. I really like to take part in outreach activities whenever I can. I think it's really important to try and raise awareness of what scientists do, and for me personally and particularly, what a physicist does. And so it doesn't really matter if you don't personally know anyone who's working in STEM, that you can still have an idea of what they do. So A lot of the activities that I would take part in, you have lots of different people who come to them. You might have parents that bring along small children. And I think what I really enjoy about it is you can be doing a demonstration, a parent might bring a child over, expecting the child to be amazed, and then the parents find out that they're just as amazed at what's going on, because it is really interesting. I think the person that inspired me most to go into this kind of a role was actually my mom. So I didn't grow up knowing anyone working in a STEM role. At the time she wasn't. But she always encouraged us to think logically, to try and understand everything around us. And we were encouraged that even if something was challenging or if it was difficult, that wasn't a reason not to pursue it. I suppose not surprisingly, she has since retrained into a tech role. But I was very privileged to grow up with that kind of atmosphere, and not everyone is. I feel it's only in recent years that I've realised how privileged I was to grow up with that kind of atmosphere, that I wasn't discouraged to follow a STEM path. And that's something that I think should be equally available, and everyone should have. Everyone has different challenges that are personal to themselves. For me, it's remembering things. I am absolutely awful at remembering things, but what I do is I take notes to try and combat that. But I think something that probably most of us feel at one point or another is that we're not good enough. And this is a challenge that lots of us face. I've faced it as a student, and even now sometimes during my work. I think what happens is that we like to do the things that we're good at because it makes it easier for us. But that means that the times that we're finding something difficult, that it might make us think that, well, maybe we're not good enough at this, or maybe we should be doing something else, rather than understanding that it's just difficult at the moment and that it's something that we can work through. So it's okay to be disappointed when you fail at something, but there's always something to learn from that, and it's important to just keep going even after failing, because that's how you succeed.